Where did the council officers go who were responsible for the abuse? Where did the council officers go in terms of transparency? Where did they go? What work did they do? Were they working with children?
Dame Margaret Hodge is a seasoned Member of Parliament who has held a number of high-profile government positions in the 4+ decades that she's been a politician. She's been viewed as a warrior spearheading transparency and accountability in government by heading a Parliamentary Standards Committee, and her latter-day media portrayal and role in public life sees her as the nation's saviour fighting for the underdog. Added to which, she is a seasoned pro on the talking circuit and has led numerous lectures and speeches from the position of having high standards of moral integrity and authority. But while Margaret Hodge has demanded transparency and accountability from others, she has not always been so forthcoming herself. Her history, as leader of a North London council for a decade through the 80s, and during a period when social workers met with her to tell her of the systemic sexual abuse of children in care, is well documented, as is her stunning lack of action. Following her time as leader of Islington Council, her friend and political ally Prime Minister Tony Blair appointed her to the newly created role of Minister of State for Children. In 2003, the outcry was immediate.
The Conservatives are calling for the sacking of Margaret Hodge as the country's first children's minister, saying people could have no confidence in her abilities to protect them. Ms Hodge was head of Islington Council during the early 1990s. During that time, it's alleged she knew of but failed to stop cases of sex abuse to the children in the council's care.
But Margaret Hodge, an adept politician, had been even quicker to denounce the accusations when they had first surfaced.
I am appalled by the gutter journalism which the Evening Standard has chosen to exploit.
But the Children's Minister went further, and she deemed the children involved, including Demetrius Poulton, now a successful lawyer, of being seriously disturbed in an attempt to stop the BBC from investigating the scandal. Later, Hodge was forced not only to admit her failings and apologise to the Islington children, but, in a stunning twist of the abused child becoming a powerful opponent in his own right, Hodge was also forced to pay Demetrius Poulton £10,000 for libelling him. A decade on, and Margaret Hodge claimed she had been naive and that information had been kept from her, but that is far from a satisfactory conclusion for the remaining survivors and those who were tortured and even murdered. Dame Hodge has benefited from the protections of being a government minister and has systematically refused to be more transparent about what had taken place in Islington during the 80s and 90s.
That's the way, but I see that as being part of that. And advisors, again, would be held to account if we had transparency. But
that's not happening because people are not talking, everybody's just shutting down these people in the government. So historic sexual abuse cases are not being addressed unless they're for Westminster and people like Cliff Richard and stuff, but not for the little people that have been left behind. And one I'm trying to help, who's just absolutely in despair. Winterburn Key, that's not been followed through. People from the government have not been following through. People from the police department have not been following through. No, this is not Parliament, but these are things you need to be aware of. Check out Islington survivors, because they're not surviving, they're just existing. Some are even dying.
I'm one.
I don't know if you want to say anything more, but we must move on to other questions because we haven't got much time.
Where did the council officers go who were responsible for the abuse? Where did the council officers go in terms of transparency? Where did they go? What work did they do? Were they working with children?
Well, I'm really happy to talk to these people outside here, but I think, if you've got an issue you want to discuss it, talk about it.
Will there be redress?
No, this is like we're supposed to be talking about accountability and transparency. That's what this is about, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
I asked Leslie Woodburn why she was so insistent on asking Dame Margaret Hodge about council workers.
Hodge has always claimed that the council officers misled her. The council officers hid information from her. Okay, if the council officers hid information and they resigned from their positions, did they go on to work for other councils, work with children, and mislead other council officials over child abuse? You know, did they move on to Rotherham, for instance? Did they move on to Rochdale? Did they go over to Lambeth? Did they go over to Hackney? Did they even get council references? You know, in terms of their job, you know, to when they moved on. So yes, that was behind my questioning of Hodge on that night.
Well, I'm really happy to talk to these people outside here, but I think, you know...
Where is the accountability and transparency? I found it ironic that Dame Margaret Hodge MP was giving a lecture on accountability and transparency in government. And yet, when faced with Islington survivors asking questions, asking for accountability, what does she say? We can have a private discussion afterwards. Where's the accountability there? At which point, I think I needed to leave. I think that survivors in general are used to feeling unheard. So quite often we can be slightly noisier than other people, which sort of feeds into their idea that we're messed up and very needy. But obviously it's an emotional topic. Abuse is an emotional topic, and there has been clear, blatant disregard for survivors.
As always with Margaret Hodge, survivors have once again been left with the sense that the transparency she so talks about does not apply to her. What is clear is that there is more to be revealed about the child abusers who resided in Islington. Certainly, a number of pro-paedophile groups had links and influence with politicians in Margaret Hodge's era in the London Borough. This included former Islington councillor Sandy Marks. Again, this was denied until the local press, the Islington Gazette, doggedly pursued this and forced admission from the council. I spoke with Liz Davis this week, the whistleblower social worker at the heart of the story and who is still fighting for justice for those who were abused. She is still living with decades of being demonised, threatened and denied. Despite this, Dr. Davis is still working with survivors from Islington's dark past and has evidence from over 200 survivors. Her investigations have now expanded from 12 Islington children's homes to 50. For while Margaret Eve Hodge has enjoyed a celebrated career, enjoying the finest that life has to offer, she left behind her a living nightmare for the working class children she failed. Children who had already been handed a difficult start in life, and the politician, so keen to point the finger at others, had added to their burdens. Almost 30 years on, and Dame Margaret Hodge has yet to fully answer to them.